Mic check, here we go. This book is called The Artist's Way, A Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity by Julia Cameron. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the introduction. It goes like this. When people ask me what I do, I usually answer, I'm a writer, director, and I teach these creativity workshops. The last one interests them. How can you teach creativity? They want to know. The defiance fights with curiosity on their faces. I can't. I tell them. I teach people to let themselves be creative. Oh, you mean we're all creative? Now disbelieve and hope battle it out. Yes, you really believe that? Yes. So what do you do? This book is what I do. For a decade now, I have taught a spiritual workshop aimed at freeing people's creativity. I have taught artists and non-artists, painters and filmmakers and homemakers and lawyers, anyone interested in living more creatively through practicing an art. Even more broadly, anyone interested in practicing the art of creative living. While using, teaching, and sharing tools I have found, devised, and divined, and been handed, I have seen blocks dissolve and lives transformed by the simple process of engaging the great creator in discovering and recovering our creative powers. The great creator? That sounds like some Native American god. That sounds too Christian, too New Age, too ... Stupid, simple-minded, threatening. I know. Think of it as an exercise in open-mindedness. Just think, okay, great creator, whatever that is, and keep reading. Allow yourself to experiment with the idea there might be a great creator and you might get some kind of use in freeing your own creativity. Because the artist's way is, in essence, a spiritual path initiated and practiced through the creativity. This book uses the word God. This may be volatile for some of you, conjuring old, unworkable, unpleasant, or simply unbelievable ideas about God as you were raised to understand Him. Please be open-minded. The primary imagination I hold to be the living power. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Remind yourself that to succeed in this course, no God concept is necessary. In fact, many of our commonly held God concepts get in the way. Do not allow semantics to become one more block for you. When the word God is being used in these pages, you may substitute the thought with good, orderly, direction, or flow. What we are talking about is a creative energy. God is useful shorthand for many of us, but so is goddess, mind, universe, source, and higher power. The point is not what you name it. The point is that you try using it. For many of us, thinking of it as a form of spiritual electricity has been very useful, jumping off place. The simple scientific approach of experimentation and observation, a workable connection with the flow of good orderly direction can easily be established. It is not intent of these pages to engage in explaining, debating, or defining that flow. You do not need to understand electricity to use it. Do not call it God unless that is comfortable for you. There seems to be no need to name it unless that name is a useful shorthand for what you experience. Do not pretend to believe when you do not. If you remain forever an atheist, agnostic, so be it. You will still be able to experience an altered life through working with these principles. I have worked artists with potters, photographers, poets, screenwriters, dancers, novelists, actors, directors, and with those who knew only what they dreamed to be, or who only dreamed of being somehow more creative. I have seen blocked painters paint, broken poets speak in tongues, halt and lame and maimed writers racing through their final drafts. I have come to not only believe, but to know. No matter what your age or your life path, whether making art is your career or your hobby or your dream, it is not too late to egotistical or too selfish or too silly to work on your creativity. One 50-year-old student who always wanted to write uses these tools and emerges as a prize-winning playwright. A judge used these tools to fulfill his long life dreams of sculpting. Not all students become full-time artists as a result of the course. In fact, many full-time artists report that they have become more creatively rounded into full-time people. Through my own experience and that of countless others I have come to believe that creativity is our true nature, that blocks are an unnatural thwarting of a process at once as normal as a miraculous as the blossoming of a flower at the end of a slender green stem. I have found this process of making spiritual contact to be both simple and straightforward. If you are creatively blocked, I believe that all of us are to some extent. It is possible, even probable, that you can learn to create more freely through your willing use of the tools in this book provides. Just as doing Hatha yoga stretches alters consciousness when all you are doing is stretching, doing the exercise in this book alters consciousness when all you are doing is writing and playing. Do these things and a breakthrough will follow, whether you believe in it or not. Whether you can call it a spiritual awakening or not, in short, the theory doesn't matter as much as the practice itself does. What you are doing is creating pathways in your consciousness through which the creative forces can operate. Once you agree to clearing these pathways, your creativity emerges. In a sense, your creativity is like your blood. Just as blood is a fact of your physical body and nothing you invented, creativity is a fact of your spiritual body and nothing that you must invent. My own journey. I began teaching the creativity workshops in New York, taught them because I was told to teach them. One minute I was walking the West Village of the cobblestone street with beautiful afternoon light. The next minute I suddenly knew that I should begin teaching groups of people how to unblock. Maybe it was a wish exhaled on somebody else's walk. Certainly Greenwich Village must contain a greater destiny of artists, blocked or otherwise, than nearly any place else in America. I need to unblock, someone may have breathed out. I know how to do it, I may have responded, picking up the cue. My life has always included strong internal directives, marching orders, I called them. Why indeed must God be a noun? Why not a verb? The most active and dynamic of all. In any case, I suddenly knew that I did not know how to unblock people and that I was meant to do so. In any case, I suddenly knew that I did know how to unblock people and that I was meant to do so, starting then and there with the lessons I myself had learned. Where did the lessons come from? In 1978, in January, I stopped drinking. I had never thought drinking made me a writer, but now I suddenly thought not drinking might make me stop. In my mind, drinking and writing went together like well scotch and soda. For me, the trick was always getting past the fear and onto the page. I was playing beat the clock, trying to write before the booze closed in like fog, and my window of creativity was blocked again. By the time I was 30 and abruptly sober, I had an office on the Paramount lot and had made a whole career out of that kind of writing. Creative in spasms, creative as an act of will and ego, creative on behalf of others, creative, yes, but in spurts like blood from a severed corduroy artery. A decade of writing, and all I knew was how to make these headlong dashes and hurls myself against all odds at the wall of whatever I was writing. If creativity was spiritual in any sense, it was only in its resemblance to the crucifixion. I fell upon the thrones of prose. I bled. If I could have continued writing the old painful way, I would certainly still be doing it. The week I got sober, I had 2 national magazine pieces out, a newly minted feature script, and an alcohol problem I could not handle any longer. I told myself that if sobriety meant to no creativity, I did not want to be sober. Yet I recognized that drinking would kill me and the creativity. I need to learn to write sober or else giving up writing entirely. Necessity, not virtue, was the beginning of my spirituality. I was forced to find a new creative path, and that is where my lesson began. I learned to turn my creativity over to the only God I could believe in, the God of creativity. The life force Dylan Thomas called the force that thought the green fuse drives the flower. I learned to get out of the way and let the creative force work through me. I learned to just show up at the page and write down what I had heard. Writing became more like eavesdropping and less like inventing a nuclear bomb. I wasn't so tricky, and it didn't blow up on me anymore. I didn't have to be in the mood. I didn't have to take my emotional temperature to see if its inspiration was pending. I simply wrote, no negotiations. Good, bad, none of my business. I wasn't doing it. By residing as a self-conscious author, I wrote freely. In retrospect, I am outstanding. I could let go of the drama of being a suffering artist. Nothing dies harder than a bad idea. A few ideas are worse than the ones we have about the art. We can charge so many things off to our suffering artist identity. Drunkenness, promiscuity, physical problems, a certain ruthlessness or self-destructiveness in matters of the heart. We all know how broke, crazy, promiscuous, unreliable artists are. And if they don't have to be, then what's my excuse? The idea that I could be sane, sober, and creative terrified me, implying as it did the possibility of personal accountability. You mean if I have these gifts, I'm supposed to use them? Yes. Providentially, I was sent to another blocked writer to work with, and on this time I began to teach him what I was learning. Get out of the way, let it work through you, accumulates pages, not judgments. He too began to unblock. Now there were two of us. Soon I had another victim. This one was a painter. The tools worked for visual artists too. This was very exciting to me. In my grander moments, I imagined I was turning into a creative cartographer, mapping a way out of confusion for myself and for whoever wanted to follow. I never planned to become a teacher. I was only angry I'd never had a teacher myself. Why did I have to learn what I learned the way I learned it? All by trial and error, all by walking into walls. We artists should be more teachable, I thought. Shortcuts, hazards of the trail could be flagged. These were the thoughts that eddied with me as I took my afternoon walks, enjoying the light off the Hudson, plotting what I would write next. Enter the marching orders. I was to teach. Within a week, I was offered a teaching position and space at the New York Feminist Art Institution, which I had never heard of. My first class, block painters, novelists, poets, and filmmakers, assembled itself. I began teaching them the lessons that are now in this book. Since that class, there have been many others and many more lessons as well. The Artist's Way began as an informal class notes mandated by my partner, Mark Bryan. As word of mouth spread, I began mailing out packets of materials. A peripatetic Juggin, John Giannani, spread the word of the techniques wherever he lectured, seemingly everywhere. Requests for the material always followed. Next, the Creation Spirituality Network got word of the work, and people wrote in from Dubuque, British Columbia, India. Students materialized all over the globe. I am in Switzerland with the State Department. Please send me. So I did. The packets expanded and the numbers of students expanded. Finally, as the result of some very pointed urging from Mark, write it all down. You can help a lot of people. It should be a book. I began formally to assemble my thoughts. I wrote, and Mark, who was by this time my co-teacher and taskmaster, told me that I had left out what I had left out. I wrote more, and Mark told me what I had still left out. He reminded me that I had seen plenty of miracles to support my theories and urged me to include those too. I put on the page what I had been putting into practice for a decade. The resulting pages emerged as a blueprint for doing-it-yourself recovery. Like mouth-to-mouth resuscitation or the Heimlich maneuver, the tools in this book are intended as lifesavers. Please use them and pass them on. Many times I've heard words like this effect before I took your... Many times I've heard the word to this effect. Before I took your class, I was completely separated from my creativity. The years of bitterness and loss had taken their toll. Then gradually the miracle started to happen. I have gone back to school to get my degree in theater. I'm auditing for the first time in years. I'm writing on a steady basis. And most important of all, I finally feel comfortable calling myself an artist. I doubt I can convey to you the feeling of the miraculous that I experienced as a teacher, witnessing the before and after in the lives of students. Over the duration of the course, the sheer physical transformation can be startling, making me realize that the term enlightenment is a literal one. Students' faces often take a glow as they contact their creative energies. The same charged spiritual atmosphere that fills a great work of art can fill a creativity class in a sense. As we are creative beings, our lives become our work of art. God must become an activity in our consciousness. The position of the artist is humble. He is essentially a channel. In the brush doing what is doing, it will stumble on what one couldn't do by oneself. Why indeed must God be a noun? Why not a verb? The most active and dynamic of all. All right, so that was the introduction. I'm going to be getting into spiritual electricity, the basic principles on our return. Thank you very much.